During World War II, prisoners of war built working radios from a rusty nail, a pencil, and a razor blade. No batteries, no components, no tools except patience and desperation. They actually worked. And the reason they worked is that radio isn't a technology you invent so much as a force you find. Something that was already there, passing through every wall, every locked cell on Earth, carrying music and news and voices nobody knew were being heard. Here's what nobody told you: the physics behind that rusty nail was discovered 60 years before anyone built a radio from one. In 1865, a Scottish mathematician named James Clerk Maxwell wrote out equations describing the behavior of electric and magnetic fields. The equations predicted something nobody had ever seen: invisible ripples traveling through empty space at the speed of light. Pure mathematics, no experiment, no proof. It took another 22 years for anyone to build one. In 1887, Heinrich Hertz set up a spark gap in his laboratory in Karlsruhe, sent electricity crackling between two metal balls, and watched a receiver across the room flicker in response. The ripple had crossed the room. Maxwell was right. When a student asked Hertz what this discovery meant for the future, he said, "It's of no use whatsoever." He meant it genuinely. Confirmation of a mathematical theory, not a blueprint for anything practical. He died in 1894 at 36, 4 years before anyone sent a message using his waves, 8 years before Marconi pointed them at the Atlantic. And this is the open thread in the story, because the thing Hertz called useless in 1887 is what tracked the last flight you were on, what keeps cars from colliding, and what let a prisoner of war in a German camp in 1943 tune into the BBC from his bunk. A radio wave is just light, not metaphorically. Literally the same electromagnetic phenomenon, just at a frequency your eyes can't detect. Stretch the wavelength far enough past visible red, past infrared, into the radio range, and you lose the color but keep everything else: the speed, the ability to pass through walls, the ability to be captured by a piece of metal, any piece of metal, a length of wire, a rusty nail. When a radio wave hits a conductor, it drags the electrons back and forth. A tiny alternating current, almost immeasurably small, but real. That current is the signal. The problem is it oscillates millions of times per second, far too fast for an earphone to respond to. You need something that collapses that alternating current into a one-directional pulse, a valve that lets it through one way and blocks it the other. In an electronic shop, that's a diode. In a PU camp, it's the oxidized surface of a razor blade. Steel that's been heated or left to rust develops a thin semiconductor layer, iron oxide. Press the tip of a graphite pencil stub against that surface and you get a junction current pushes through in only one direction. That's the entire trick. Wind salvaged wire around a cardboard tube, string an antenna across the ceiling, connect the earphone, and the radio that was always there becomes audible. No power source. The broadcast signal itself provides the energy. Signals strong enough to run through kilometers of air, pass through concrete, and deliver just enough electricity into a coil of prison camp wire to vibrate a membrane in someone's ear. It worked because Marconi had already proved, in December of 1901, that radio waves don't stop at the horizon. Everyone assumed they would. The Earth curves, the logic went, so a straight, traveling wave would shoot off into space after a few hundred miles. Marconi didn't believe it. He climbed Signal Hill in St. John's, Newfoundland, flew a kite with a wire antenna into a freezing December sky and waited. The signal arrived from Cornwall, England, 3,500 kilometers of open ocean. 3 dots. The Morse letter S repeated 3 times until there was no question. The Earth curves and the wave curves with it, bouncing between the ground and the upper atmosphere like a stone skipped across water. Marconi had proved it, though he didn't fully understand why. The ionosphere, the reflective layer that makes it possible, wouldn't be formally described for another 2 decades. But crossing the Atlantic was actually the easy part. The hard part was getting the radio to say anything except dots and dashes. Every transmission up to 1906 was Morse code. No voice, no music. Then, on Christmas Eve of 1906, a Canadian inventor named Reginald Fessenden sat at a transmitting station at Brant Rock, Massachusetts, picked up a violin, and played "O Holy Night." Ships across the Atlantic, wireless operators expecting nothing but code, heard a melody. What Fessenden had worked out was amplitude modulation. Instead of switching the wave on and off, you shape it. Make it taller or shorter thousands of times per second in a pattern that mirrors sound, and the receiver reproduces that pattern as vibration, voice, music. By the 1920s, families were arranging their chairs around wooden boxes in the parlor on Sunday evenings to hear voices from hundreds of miles away. That signal got cleaner in 1933. Edwin Armstrong, an electrical engineer from New York who'd already invented 2 foundational circuits in modern radio, patented a new kind of transmission frequency modulation, FM. Instead of shaping the height of the wave, you shift the frequency, and the result doesn't pick up the static and atmospheric interference that plagues AM. Crisper, fuller, better. Armstrong brought the technology to RCA, which dominated AM radio and was run by a man who had once been his close friend, David Sarnoff. Sarnoff understood immediately. FM didn't just improve radio. If it caught on, it made the entire existing AM infrastructure, every transmitter, every receiver, every radio in every home in America, worth nothing. RCA didn't compete with FM. They lobbied the Federal Communications Commission to relocate the FM broadcast band to a different set of frequencies in 1945, a move that rendered every FM transmitter and receiver already built instantly obsolete. Armstrong spent years fighting it in court, burning through his own savings. By January of 1954, the lawsuits had taken his money, his health, and his marriage. On January 31st, he put on his coat, hat, and gloves in his 13th floor Manhattan apartment and walked out the window. His wife Marion kept fighting. She won. Every settlement came after the man who built the technology had been destroyed by the people made rich by the worst version of it. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, 5G, GPS, all radio waves. Different frequency, different modulation, same invisible light Hertz, called useless in 1887. The signals that carried Fessenden's violin across the ocean, bounced Marconi's 3 dots off the upper atmosphere, filled Armstrong's courtroom. They're still here. They pass through you right now, thousands per second, carrying voices and music you'll never hear. Unless you have a rusty nail.